Hey, listen up. Yeah, we here and we locked in. Let's keep it going all the way to the top 10. We fear the turtles, so it's no other option. Fred and Ryan, just watch them. Let's take it to the max. It's the shell and tell. They come with all the facts. It's the shell and tell. Let's take it to the max. It's the shell and tell. They come with all the facts. It's the shell and tell.
What's up, everybody? Fred and Ryan, Shell and Tell, episode 18. We're back, bitches.
Yeah, we got out of our pandemic depression. Figured out how to do this like long distance recording thing. Had to throw some money up and wait for shipping for that.
Right.
But we're finally back in your headphones.
Yeah, I don't know how much out of the pandemic we are. I'm still down here in my bomb shelter that I've been locked in now for 3 months, it feels like. Well, actually, it feels like 3 years.
Yeah, Shell and Tell's out of the pandemic. Ryan and Fred still very much in the pandemic.
Very much in the thick of the pandemic, man. But I'm glad to be back. As you see, we're doing something a little bit different. If you don't see, that means you're listening to the audio podcast. Check us out on our YouTube page. We're going to start doing maybe some video shows like this one. So if you want something to, look at two ugly mugs and kind of put the faces to the words, check us out on our YouTube page at Shell and Tell Pod. We got a big show for you. Got a lot to talk about on today's show. Obviously, the shutdown and kind of how that's affected the university, Ryan. I know it's had a large impact on both basketball and football.
Yeah, I mean, the financial impact is unbelievable, and the emotional impact of what it's done to these guys is just unspeakable. So hopefully we never have to live through this again. Hopefully we get back out there. But we also got to look towards the future. So we're looking at football recruiting classes, big names joining the program. And then, of course, we're going to get into Cowan's last game and his legacy he leaves behind.
Yeah, and with him leaving and Jalen Smith leaving, who's coming in to replace them? Who are the next guys to kind of step up? So we got a lot to get into. It's been 3 months, Ryan. It's been 3 months, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, but, nothing else is happening in sports, so we can, slow foot it back into it. But let's get into the basketball right now.
Let's do it. I thought this was probably one of the more exciting teams in recent memory with the Terps.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the more exciting teams. That's why we were all looking forward to March. I mean, they had a really good shot last year, a good squad. Obviously, Bruno was big time, but they just had so many really young role players. We really thought that second-year jump for all of them could do big things. Obviously, Cowan's senior leadership came back for one reason and one reason only, and to win. And he accomplished one of his goals. I mean, we had a share of the Big Ten title. That was really big. It was very cool to see.
Yeah.
But I know he wanted his shot at the big one.
Yeah, that was obviously a big goal of Cowan. Cowan, man, hell of a career. When you look at what he did offensively, 14.5 points per game over his career, a 4-year starter, essentially. I mean, even the first year there as a freshman, maybe didn't start right out of the gates, but moved into a starting role. I think he averaged like 27 or 28 minutes as a freshman. So he was playing some pretty critical minutes.
Yeah, he was big time from day one. Turge always loved the man, always leaned on him. That was some of my criticism early. I think he leaned a little harder than he probably should have early, but he was an absolute all-time talent, and you can't take that away from him for sure.
He fits the mold of what Mark Turgeon has done in his career, at least here at Maryland, right? He finds that go-getter guard that you can kind of put the ball in his hand, let him be a floor general, and let him create on his own, and that's kind of been Cowan's career. He got better as the years went on as far as finding teammates and getting others involved and whatnot. I mean, when you look at it, he had 4.5 assists over his career. And what he did from the field as an 81% free throw shooter and shooting 40% from the field, I mean, he put up good numbers.
Yeah, 1,881 career points, puts him at 7th on the list, right above Mr. Lonnie Baxter and below John Lucas.
So that brings up a good point. I wanted to get your take on this. This is something I was thinking about, like when the season ended. There's been a lot of good players come through this university over the years, right? So it got me to thinking, like, because everybody, wants to put a ranking or put a number on somebody. I wanted to get your take. Where do you see Cowan ranking among the all-time Maryland greats? I mean, when you're thinking of some of these greats, just in recent memory, you got Gravis Vasquez and Juan Dixon and Melo Trimble, Steve Francis, Steve Blake. I mean, the laundry list of players. Where does he sit for you and say you're top 5, top 10 all time?
Yeah, I mean, college basketball is one of the hardest things to put a ranking on that because there's so broad a category. So college football is one thing. You got 3 years with them no matter what. So, like, you can have a great college career and a terrible NFL career, but I can still rank your college evenly with a bunch of other people.
Right.
In basketball, how do you do that when they could be there 1 year, 2 years, 4 years?
That's a good point.
They could have a much better NBA career than they did a college career, which happens a surprising number of times. When you look on this list, number 1 is Mr. Juan Dixon. Dixon went to the NBA, of course, but his backcourt partner Steve Blake had a much better NBA career.
100%.
So how do you really get the rankings? For me, I look more what you brought to the school, the memories for you being at that school, so more focused. So I lean a lot heavier on the 3 and 4 year players. Bruno's an all-time great in my head, but I could never put him on the all-time great list. Like, I loved watching the man play, but he's not going to be in a top 10 because he's only 2 years. And in that 2 years, we didn't really win anything. It was just entertaining.
Right.
So I got him around 4 or 5 on my all-time list. Bias, absolutely the number 1. Dixon, Vasquez, and then you get in there. I could put Cowan right there at 4, really.
Yeah. So I kind of look at it a little bit differently because I feel like a lot of team success is based on the team, not just the individual players. So when I'm ranking players, I'm looking at their individual production, not so much maybe the team's production, because think about it, there's been plenty of teams that we've had over the years that had great singular players, but they weren't very good as teams. They didn't make it very far. Bruno is a prime example. Christ, you put Bruno on those late 90s, early 2000 teams, and they're winning a national championship pretty much every year, right, with somebody that dominant. I get your point about the overall, like what they did career-wise overall, because it's much easier to rank a player that's been there for 4 years and committed all 4 years versus somebody that was there 2 years. So I get it. But when I look at it, I'm looking at just overall talent from the singular player. And Juan Dixon is a complete package. So I'm there with you. Definitely Juan Dixon, I think, is my number 1 overall player just because he did have the career. He did have the success, right? You put all that together, and he was an outstanding shooter when he was here. Steve Francis.
Did you just put him over Bias, your number 1?
No. I'm talking about just my top 3. I'm not putting him number 1. I'm not, it's hard to rank them. It's hard to put a number on it. Len Bias is by far the best athlete, the best basketball player.
The way you described it sounded like that's what you were ranking them on, and that's why I was kind of taken back, that wasn't. No,
so I was agreeing with you in the sense that Juan Dixon is in my list. So I wasn't giving you a number yet. Juan Dixon's in my list for all the reasons that you mentioned, on top of the fact that he was a great overall basketball player. He's in my list. Len Bias is one of those guys that was just a phenomenal athlete, the best basketball player that's ever come through this program, in my opinion. I think Steve Francis is up there. Steve Francis was here 1 year. He was a transfer in for that 1 year that he was here. But overall, he was one of the best basketball players to ever come through this list. But then you've got the other side of you, right? The fan side of you that's pulling on some of the heartstrings with the guys like Gravis Vasquez and Bruno Fernando and Melo Trimble, the guys that have been around. So it's really, really hard to rank where Anthony Cowan fits. I think he's a top 5 to top 10 player overall, but I don't have him above those 3 players. I don't have him in the top 3 career.
Like I said, we're fans first, so it's really hard to remove what we watch, what we witnessed, and to put some of these all-time greats from the 70s and early 80s that really aren't a part of what we remember. Like, we can watch highlights and appreciate them, but when you put pen to paper and do a top 10, like 3 or 4 people from the national championship team are going to make my top 10.
Right.
Absolutely. Lonnie Baxter, Blake, and Dixon. I'd even have to consider putting Chris Wilcox in there, but the whole not there long enough is going to keep him out of my top 10 most likely.
And that's a great point, because there's so many other names of guys that have been around that had great Maryland careers that you and I weren't privy to watch. The Tom McMillans of the world, the Lenny Elmores of the world, Johnny Rhodes, Buck Williams, John Lucas, Albert King. All these guys were great Maryland basketball Terps. But just unfortunately we weren't there to watch him. Len Bias, no, I wasn't around to watch Len Bias play, but there's been enough documentary on these guys. There's been enough comparisons to where he was to be able to put him as
the all-time greats. It's very easy. It's that tier 2, tier 3 that, you watch, and every once in a while you'll catch one of their games and be able to appreciate how good they are, but we can't possibly have a grasp of their whole career there.
So what do you think's next for Anthony Cowan, man? Do you think he has a shot at the NBA? Do you see him playing overseas somewhere, following kind of Melo Trimble, or what?
Well, I know what's immediately next because he's joining the podcast realm.
He is.
With Andrew Terrell. One stop.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty good. I was already listening to Left a Bench with Andrew Terrell and his cousin, and I obviously think that Anthony Cowan's going to be upgrade over Andrew Terrell's cousin.
Yeah.
So I think I'll be a fan. I'll listen.
Andrew Terrell is a character, man. If you haven't followed him on Twitter, like, he has no filter. He doesn't hold back. This was a guy that was just literally a bench warmer, a practice body for his entire career here with Maryland. He was a fan favorite. People loved him. He was that
Reese
Mona guy, right? Exactly.
We always got one that we're just in love with off the bench.
Exactly. He was the glorified cheerleader of the team. But man, he's got a great personality and not afraid to say what he wants. So I think that show with him and Anthony Cowan will be good. His first show, he's got lined up a really big guest. He's got Cassius Winston from Michigan State lined up for his first show. That should be an interesting discussion between those two. They had some heated battles.
That should definitely be interesting. I wonder if they discuss our ABC plan, anybody but Cassius, to win that game.
Exactly. So what do you think? I mean, do you think Anthony Cowan legit, take the fan out of it, take the Maryland out of it, do you think that he has a legit shot at an NBA career, or do you see him like kind of flourishing overseas?
No, I don't think he's going to be in the NBA. I'm interested to see, now that there's money flowing in the G League, whether they're interested in having players in the G League instead of the D League. Because when it's a D League, you want those players to get to the NBA someday.
Right.
If it's a G League and you're willing to pay them while they're there, maybe he'd be a big enough name to get eyes on that game and get fans watching that game. So he's either going to be overseas or he's going to be in the G League. I don't think he's going to be given that shot in the NBA, unfortunately. I mean, Melo Trimble hasn't, and he's lighting Australia on fire. So I don't see why they'd let Cowan do it.
I just don't see his body size holding up in the NBA. It's too physical of a game. I just don't see it working at the NBA level. Now, if he had something that put him head and heels above a lot of players. Like if he had a 3-point shot, the equivalent of like a Steph Curry or something like that, then yeah, obviously I could see him having a long NBA career. But I think it'll start overseas. If he develops over there, maybe he gets a shot over in the NBA in a couple years from now. But listen, there's a lot of money to be made, and there's nothing wrong with going overseas and playing over there. Like I said, a lot of Terps have done so over recent years.
Yeah, hopefully he makes some money playing basketball, and obviously he should be able to make a little bit of money too, getting into the broadcast sphere. His name's going to carry weight for him, so he'll do okay just from his Maryland basketball experience.
So another NBA prospect that we haven't really talked about since he announced that he was going to the NBA draft officially. We all kind of knew it was happening this year, but he made it official. All right, none of us did. Jalen Smith, Sticks, going to the NBA. Where do you see his prospect going? Do you see him as like a lottery pick, a late first round, maybe a second round kind of guy? Where do you see Jalen falling?
So this one, I think, is the one that hurts me the most, that we didn't get to see March basketball, because last year in the tournament, he took it to a whole new gear. It was a whole another level of Jalen Smith. And then this year, obviously, he played much better than his regular season last year. So I didn't know if, like, he had already put it in that gear and we were just going to see about the same thing, or if we were seeing another jump to, like, I mean, NBA regular season basketball is terrible, and NBA playoffs are something that's magic. I can't believe that bodies can do that.
Right.
So I wanted to see if Jalen had that gear. I think he did, and I think if we would have seen it, then he'd be a lottery pick. Right now, I think he's going to be a late first rounder. But I think he's going to end up being a steal, because I really do believe that there's something about the competitive nature of him that let him turn it on so quickly last year, and I really wish we got to see that this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think when he first hit campus, a couple years ago, all the hype was this guy is going to be a lottery pick whenever he goes to the NBA. He's got the size, his body will fill out and all that. And we saw his body fill out over the years. He put in the work, especially up top. He started putting on the muscle. But even going into last year, and even really through the first quarter of last season, the biggest question mark that I had about Jalen was his inability to play physical and to dominate down low, right? That was always my question with him, is he's a good shooter. He can step out and shoot three. He can be one of those stretch type players, but how good can he be down low? And it really seemed like something changed. I think it was in that Indiana game, if I remember right, where he kind of was barking at the fans during the game.
Northwestern was the first time he
was it Northwestern?
Pointed at the scoreboard and flexed.
Indiana
was the one where Turge had to hold him back at the end. But
That's
the very
right.
first was when we got blown out of the building in the first half of the Northwestern game, and the second half Jalen Smith decided we were going to win.
That's right. So it was like at that point a switch flipped in him. And he became a totally different player. It's like you said in a recent or a previous podcast. It was like at that point he realized Bruno wasn't coming back, and that he needed to step up and be that dominating force down low. And that's where my opinion on Jalen Smith changed, because honestly, going into this year, I thought if he declared this year, I didn't see him being a first-round pick. I saw him being a second-round pick, and I thought he would be declaring too early. But now, because I saw that physical side of his game, I could see him being kind of a middle round of the first round, like a 15 to 20 slot pick. So not quite lottery, just outside of the lottery pick. But look, the only thing I kind of worry about, and this is the same, I think, worry for any fringe player like this, is how does COVID affect their draft status, right? Because they're not getting in front of teams like they would. Are they getting the individual workouts that they would normally get with other teams? No. So I don't know. Does that affect his draft status? That's a whole nother issue.
I don't think it affects him. In fact, I think if anything, it actually helps, because the mid-major guys, the guys that didn't play top-level competition all the time, or even playing in another top Power 5 conference that's not the Big Ten, that you're not going against some of the best big men in the country. I mean, our top 7 to 10 centers in the Big Ten was better than anybody else's third. I mean, Oturo was probably our 10th best center. He's better than anyone else's third. He's better than the third best in the ACC, the SEC. You line them up. Oturo was a man-child. I just don't. I think that he played high enough competition all year that they're going to be able to see what they needed to see with him. And in fact, those mid-major guys, or even just the Seton Halls, but really, high level mid-majors that just only played a few big teams, they didn't have the tape on, and the measurables might have been great if they had these interviews. Those guys might have leapfrogged him, but I don't think they will now without being able to get in front of the coaches.
That's a good point. So speaking of leapfrogging, right? We were hoping, now that Bruno left last year and Jalen Smith left this year, that going into this upcoming season, that we'd see some of these other guys, these guys that have been kind of role players and they've been kind of the bench warmers for the last couple of years, take another step, because now they're plunged into starting roles. You got the likes of Ricky Lindo and Joshua Tomaic.
We're set. We got Ricky Lindo, we got Joshua Tomaic, we got the Mitchell twins.
Nope.
I mean, we got 4 big. Wait, none of them. None of them are coming back next year.
Yeah, I mean, some of these transfers I kind of thought made sense if we were going to be bringing in some big body transfers, right? And if we were going to have some replacements, because honestly, the little bit of time that we have seen out of Ricky Lindo and Joshua Tomaic hasn't been very impressive. They haven't been physically dominating players or anything. I don't think they're Big Ten starter capable. It was just more so they were forced into a position because of the lack of options. Well, you fast forward, we don't get any transfers, and these guys still transfer out. Who the hell do we have to even play down low at this point? Chol, that's it. Chol and Dante Scott.
I mean, the big-time transfers just kind of skipped over us. I don't know what it is. I don't know if this is a Mark Turgeon issue, if this is couldn't have players on campus to see what they were getting into, or if the rest of the country just doesn't see in Aaron Wiggins, Eric Ayala, Daryl Morcell, Dante Scott like we do. Right. I mean, I'm interested to see what a Daryl Morcell-led team is, because this is Daryl's team next year. Period.
Is it? Is it? I don't know. Did you see his tweets?
Is it Eric Ayala? I mean, I don't want to be the straight Eric
Ayala. No, but
truther.
I'm saying, Daryl Morcell, did you see his tweet about Tamajic.
Oh, okay. About
I
Tamajic.
graduate this summer too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another time that Daryl wishes he would have put his foot in his mouth and just,
Don't hit sand.
I can't say he apologized, but he kind of did. He clarified. He said, I'm going to be here next year.
Yeah.
That was just talking to my boy. I mean, it's public persona talking to your boy. He did the same thing at the end of last year where he's like, I don't want to talk about next season, and threw us all into a tizzy. And I was recorded on this podcast talking about how he was going to transfer to George Washington and then sit out a year, he could graduate there and go again.
Yeah, you were freaking out.
He could go to 3 schools in 2 years. I was a little worried, but I think Daryl Morcell has embraced that Baltimore-made, that Maryland-made outfit, and he wants to be that next guy. And he's got the attitude to be the leader.
Right.
I hope Eric Ayala is 1B to Derek Morcell. I saw a lot of really great things in that last game that I was waiting for all year, and ended up being the very last game. I think he was trying to throw it into that March Madness mode, and then they just cut it off.
Right. Well,
he scored 19 points in that final game, and he just looked confident. Like, he just had this swagger that I hadn't seen all year.
Yeah.
It truly, to me, even before the games got canceled, I felt sitting there watching this game that this was like a passing of the torch type thing.
Right.
Like, he finally realized, like, Cowan's leaving. This is his final game. This has got to be my squad. And he picked it up, and he played a serious game. Was a big part of why we won that game, got a share of the Big Ten. And so I will be very happy if that's the Ayala we see all next year. I just didn't want to be the guy pounding my chest for Eric for the 400th time.
Yeah, see, I'm not worried about the guard play at all. I think Ayala will be fine in the role that he's in. We got a couple of young freshmen that are coming in that look pretty promising. I'm not so worried about the guard play. It's definitely the big bodies down low, because at this point, just because of limited options, you're looking at Chol Marial as your starting 5, unless they see something good in this new transfer that they got, Jalen Smith out of Alabama.
No, Jalen Smith's going to the NBA.
No, Galen Smith. With a G.
Jalen Smith is going to the NBA.
With a G. Galen Smith.
Oh, yeah, with a G. Yeah,
with
course.
a G.
It's Jalen with the fake nose and glasses that everyone's seen on. Yeah.
Right.
No, Galen Smith obviously didn't play very many minutes, didn't score many points in Alabama, but he's going to play a lot of minutes here because we have nobody else to play that role.
Yeah.
Let's hope he's got some skills. The problem with him in Alabama, too, was that he fouled an average of 14 fouls in 40 minutes or something crazy.
Yeah.
There's some ridiculous number. Now, hopefully he was just their enforcer. They just went out there and said, hey, wear out that center and foul him if you need to. I don't know what they used him like.
Yeah, but, the little bit that I watched of him, because I did watch some tape because I didn't know what we were getting, is the first thing I did was went and look at his stats. Nothing about his stats blew me away, but I saw a couple pictures of him, and I thought, well, damn, I mean, he's a pretty big dude. He looks like he could be really physical, and when I watched him on tape, that's exactly what I saw. He's a super physical player. He's a high-energy guy. I think he can match Daryl Morcell in that sense as far as energy goes. He's quick to the ball, and he can use his power down low. I just don't think he was the right fit in that system that Alabama ran. I'm hoping that he fits better in this system here with Mark Turgeon. And hopefully playing in the bigger lights and the bigger stage of the Big Ten from a basketball school standpoint, maybe that gets him amped up. Maybe he starts playing well. I'm hoping, because our options are limited.
COVID. Yeah, and our biggest problem is COVID. We got these guys back on campus. They've been working miracles in that weight training program. They've had the sophomore jumps for both Bruno and Jalen were absolutely insane. Can you imagine that sophomore jump for Dante Scott?
I know.
He'd be amazing. But how is he going to have that sophomore jump sitting at home eating potato chips? I mean, we got to get these guys back to campus. The world has to be fixed before sports can go on.
Yeah. No, I know. But, that's been my worry through this whole thing is you and I are a part of a couple of big Terps group chats on social media, and we're constantly in there listening and talking about different recruits, whoever we're kind of connected to as possibly a transfer in. And it seemed like all these names, it was every day there was a new name that was popping up that somebody would be excited about and was talking about why it would be such a good fit here at Maryland. And you're swinging and missing on all of these guys, and I understand the COVID effect to it, but these other schools are still managing to figure out a way to land these guys, and Maryland just kept swinging and missing. That's a concern of mine.
So I'm going to hold my breath a little bit. This week would be graduation for most colleges around the country. So I'm kind of just hoping that there's some silent guys that were like, if as long as I pass this class, I'll be graduating, and then I'll have to worry about a waiver and I can go somewhere.
Wink, nod.
yeah. Like just so let's hope we still got a little something going on. And if not, maybe we finally play small ball. Maybe we finally press full court all game, because we certainly have the athletes to do it. Let Gary come back and teach these boys how to press all game, and that lineup will still do fine.
Right. All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's switch to the other side of the ball, the football side of things. Talk a little bit about our hopes for an upcoming 2020 season. Obviously, spring ball has already been affected and already been shut down. Listen, I know it's impacting everybody equally. None of these teams are able to get into the weight rooms and train as a team. None of these teams are able to get the attention that they want. But when you're talking about a university like Maryland, who's trying to kind of build from the ground up, right? They got a lot of youth in there. They got a lot of young talent. This time is critical for those guys to get in, learn the playbook, learn their teammates, and just start building that athletic college body, that Big Ten body.
Yeah, I mean, we were super excited about the number of December entries we had. The guys that were going to get to go through spring ball, that were going to get to be deep into the playbook before we got into camp, and got to, play those extra practices together. Well, they got in the weight room a little bit before everything got shut down, but they didn't get a single practice. All they're doing now is Zoom meetings with the team, just basically, theory and running plays on the Zoom meetings. There's nothing physical happening. So what really benefit are they going to get from these early entries?
Right. Well, let me ask you this, just straight up, yes or no type of answer. Do you even think that there is a 2020 season this year?
Yes. I honestly don't believe there's going to be a 2020 season. I think our 2020 and 2021 class will start together. I don't hope for that. In my heart of hearts, I hope for a whole 2020 season. What I believe would be most beneficial for the Maryland Terrapins would be for there to be a beginning of the 2020 season that gets cut short, and we can win some nice early games and not get into that murderer's row we always run into at the end of the season.
Right.
That's kind of like my wink, wink, nod, nod hope, is like we go 4-0 and they shut down the season.
Hell no. If we're going 4-0, keep the train rolling, man. I don't even want to stop at that point.
I think that number still gets pretty rough from there on out.
No, I know. No, I think there will be some form of a season. Listen, nothing in the sports world is going to be what it's been in the past this season for 2020 at the very minimum. I do think that there will be some form of a season. We're already seeing the SECs opening back up for players and athletes to report into the facilities on June 8th. So things are starting to slowly open up. And if it means that, some of these conferences have to distance themselves a little bit from the NCAA and kind of do their own thing independently, maybe we even see the Big Ten do that. I think there's just, I get it that a lot of the money is generated through ticket sales and through that type of revenue, that the TV contracts on college football aren't as big as some of the professional sports, the NFL and MLB and all that kind of stuff. But 20% or 30% of your revenue is better than 0%. In my opinion.
Yeah, and if there's no baseball season, they could probably pick up a bunch of extra TV contracts for extra college games.
Right.
They could find a way to make that money. But I don't want to go bring it back. You said right now COVID's affecting everyone evenly. It's starting not to. Like the SEC has now said that you can come back. That's going to give the SEC a very large advantage if nobody else is coming back.
That's the difference between college sports and professional sports. College sports are individually governed by their individual conferences, whereas the NFL is the NFL. The MLB is the MLB. They don't, they're all governed by their own system. So it's a little bit different.
Well, I don't want to talk about this anymore because we'll just assume there's going to be a 2020 season, put our heads in the sand, hope for the best, and then we'll just pretend we're surprised when it doesn't happen.
All right. Well, then let's talk positive, right? And I can tell you there's a shit ton to be positive about with the 2021 class that's getting ready to come in, because we've got a ton of names, big names that are coming in. And the biggest storyline, I guess, surrounding the university right now, for at least for the last, what has it been, I guess about a week now at this point, was getting the transfer from Alabama, Taulia Tagovailoa. Huge.
Yep. 2-2 in the house.
That's right.
I mean, Lance we trust, and let's not forget that Josh Jackson is our starter.
No, he's
right
not.
now.
No, he's not. Nope.
I mean,
Nope.
I think he was starting at the end of the season.
Nope. He's not our starter.
And he still has eligibility, so I think he's our starter.
No. Lance, I think
probably not.
I think it's Lance's job to lose at this point. I think he comes in as a day one starter, and obviously Taulia's applying for his waiver to play this year.
His family is very confident he's going to get it.
I think most people are
sure
confident.
why,
They're
but-
giving these waivers away like candy at this point. They're even talking about doing away with the waiver altogether. So I don't think they're going to deny anybody their waiver access at this point, especially considering everything that's gone on this year. I think they're trying to do anything that they can to kind of appease people and make things, a good out of a bad. You know what I mean? But there's a lot to be excited about with this kid, man. I was thinking about this the other day. I was actually talking to my co-host Scott on Birdland BS about this. I think this has got to be the most exciting quarterback name to come through the University of Maryland in 2 decades, 20 years. And not just because of his name and because of who he is. When you watch the film on this kid, there's a reason, and not just his brother. There's a reason he ended up at Alabama. And listen, I'll take a third-string quarterback at Alabama any day at the University of Maryland right now.
Right now, I mean, they don't have the greatest history of quarterbacks. They have the greatest history of everybody else. Everybody else.
I mean, look, he's got great pocket awareness. He's got great vision. When you watch him on tape, he's got really underrated mobility in my opinion. Like, they didn't really use him a whole lot as a running threat in high school. Like, he ran around like crazy because his line sucked. But they didn't really use him as a mobile quarterback too much. But he shows the ability. He's got underrated speed. I think that he's similar to Lance Lejeune in that sense. I think Lance is the better athlete, but I think Taulia is going to be the better thrower. He's got a very strong arm. He's got very good accuracy, especially on deep passes. Look, we haven't had anybody to hang our hat on at the quarterback position in a very, very long time. I think this kid, not only will he do a good job at the position, but the trickle-down effect that he brings to the university, I think, is huge.
Yeah, I mean, well, it goes back to just like the players from winning programs, bringing in the Ohio State DN Keandre Jones and Shaq Smith from Clemson last year, and Loxley talking about bringing in players from winning programs and really establishing, like, self-commitment and being driven. We talk about Ruben Hippolyte being this like self-driven individual they brought into the last recruiting class. Like, I don't worry about him and COVID at all. Him and Raheem Jarrett are working out great. They're getting bigger and stronger every day. Yeah. It's some of the other, tertiary players that you worry about, but Loxley seems to have been building this idea of, it's on you. It's you. The players have to make the decisions. They have to make the sacrifices. The coaches can't do it for you. So he's been working towards that. So hopefully we're in a much better spot now than a couple years ago before Loxley started instilling that in our players.
Right. I agree. I was reading through some articles about Taulia because once I started going down this rabbit hole, I think I kind of eliminated the Caleb Williams infatuation, right? I think we can both agree that Caleb Williams link to Maryland is now done 100%, right?
Yeah, let's agree. That way when it happens, we're super excited.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. He's going to Oklahoma. I think that's kind of been done. I think that's why this deal with Taulia ended up happening. I think they had a conversation with Locks and told him he was going to be committing to Oklahoma, so Locks put all his chips in on Taulia to get him here.
Well, let's talk about the conversation we do know happened. So Lance Lejeune puts out there that talked to coach, say he wants to bring in talent. I told him challenge accepted.
Yep.
That's my man.
I like
That's my man, Lance. That's a great answer.
Yep. And I'll be honest, in the beginning with him, I felt kind of like in his first year, reading through, again, some of his tweets were just kind of decoded. So you kind of pulled.
So hard.
They're so hard to figure out, right?
They're like 4 words.
Yeah.
A lot of questions.
Right. And me being a pessimist, right? I always read into the negative of it. You know,
that's it. We're projecting our own stuff on every one of his tweets.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
Mean
100%.
Nothing we're thinking.
I thought this guy is so privileged and thinks he needs to be the starter day one. Da, 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 da. And then he puts out this that, challenge accepted, that he welcomes competition. I love that, right? Because, competition breeds greatness, right? And I just think that regardless of who ends up being the starter, whether it is Lance Lejeune or it is Taulia, they're both going to be pushing each other to be better, which is only going to benefit us as a team.
Yeah. It's absolutely going to benefit us. Now, Locks had to have that conversation with him because you were down to Josh Jackson and Lance Lejeune. And if you just start talking to Tua and that gets floated back to Lance and he's like, I don't believe in you, you don't believe in me, I'm entering the transfer portal, and you don't get Tua, you're down to Josh Jackson as a scholarship quarterback. You just might as well cancel the season.
Exactly.
It's already crazy that right now we truly only have 2 scholarship quarterbacks because Tua doesn't have a waiver yet. At 3, we're looking okay. Really, you should have 4. That's
well, I think we did pick up a 4th, right? Didn't we get some transfer in from Wisconsin or something?
No, we got a Division III transfer.
Yeah, he's from Wisconsin somewhere.
But they have to sit out a year also,
okay.
unless a waiver is received, which I don't know if that's going to happen either.
Did you hear Paul Finnenbaum's comments about Taulia the other day, though?
Yeah, he's absolutely nuts.
This is all to do about nothing, talking about the Taulia situation. Oh, well, if it helps the Terps go to a 7-5 record, well, good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for us. Right.
I will sign up for a 7-5 record this year right now.
100%. That means we're bowling. We just had a 3-win season, and 2 of those games were the first 2 games of the year.
Yeah, if you would have said 6-6, I might have signed the paper. 7-5, I will sign that right now.
100%.
Yeah, we just won 3 games. So if this one quarterback doubles their win total, well, then he's an all-time great.
Right.
Like what is that not going to make? That's one of the reasons to come here and do that is because where you're not going to go down. What are you going to win 2 games? That's not going to happen. Right. I can't believe we only won 3. So only up from here, guys. Let's go do it. Let me show you how great I am.
And the great thing about this, kind of pulling back to what I was saying earlier, how he'll kind of bring a trickle down effect to this team is he's already got other, recruits excited about coming here. There's been some top offensive linemen out there that have been talking and coming in here and playing with Taulia. I know there's I think there's one center that they're looking at that's a highly regarded center.
We just got preferred walk-on from Hawaii yesterday or today. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but it's, that might be related, might not. Who knows?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I think offensive line is a great topic of debate because that's something that was obviously a glaring hole, really for the past couple of seasons, last year in particular, right? Our quarterbacks were running for their lives. That's a lot to do with why I think we were as bad as we were.
Yeah, like I said, the biggest thing is that we only have 1 quarterback next year. Like that, the first year that we have 1 quarterback start week 1 and that same quarterback is standing after the last game, we're going to be in a bowl game. Right. It's unbelievable how deep into this QB room we've gotten every year. We're 4 and 5 QBs deep throughout the year. It's nuts. Who does that?
Well, one of those guys that was running for his life last year, who's going to get a fresh start his senior year, as Terrell Piggy, he's going to be transferring out and going to Western Kentucky. Listen, I think that's a good opportunity for him out there. He's not a Big Ten quarterback. He's not a big conference quarterback. I think Western Kentucky is more of a good fit for him, gives him a chance to go out there and succeed in his senior year.
Yeah, God bless him. I hope he does really well out there. Hope it makes us look like idiots for wasting his talent.
I hope so, too.
My man's given me some great memories. I watched him beat Texas twice. Watched him nearly pull off the upset on Ohio State.
Yeah,
our
down
first
to the
game,
wire.
Live game together.
Yeah.
I liked a lot about what Piggy was there. We couldn't take it over the next step, and you gotta move on and try to get something new. But no hard feelings here, man. It's one of the easiest transfers to wish well I've ever had.
Yeah, agreed. So let's stay with an update on some of these big names, especially locally, that are coming in. Obviously, Taulia is the big storyline. That's what everybody's talking about right now. It's got everybody excited. But, man, you can't not look at what Locks & Co. is doing with this defensive front, they've brought in 4 of some of the best defensive linemen for this 2021 class in the entire country.
Yeah, we always talked, it starts in the trenches. In last year's 2020 class, they got a bunch of big-time or at least big-bodied offensive linemen that they got in there.
Right.
And this year they seem to be truly focusing on the defensive line. You got Marcus Bradley, Demonian Robinson out of Quince Orchard, Taze Johnson. You got all kinds of big names.
Yeah, Taze Johnson, Zion Shockley. And then, that's just on the defensive line. You add those guys to the Ruben Hippolytes of the world, some of the fresh linebackers that are coming in the 2020 class. This defense turns around very, very quickly. We've seen it here in Baltimore, obviously being Ravens fans. Defense wins championships, right? And you bring a talent like Taulia in on the offensive side, and you become a shutdown defense, especially up front in the trenches in the front 7, this team can turn around quick.
You already have 2 4-stars on the defensive line, and there's a lot of talk we're going to get another 4-star coming up shortly.
No, 3. The Marcus Bradley, Damian Robinson, and what's his name? Taze Johnson are all 4-stars.
All 4-stars.
Yeah,
okay.
the only 3-star is Zion Shockley. So we've got 3 4-stars, and like you said, a potential 4th coming in. That's huge.
Hey, till pen's on paper, there's nothing for sure, but I'm certainly happy how it is now. If we just stayed pat, only signed these guys, it's still a great, great class.
Yep.
So, stay local.
All local.
All shop local, stay local. It's safer to stay home. Didn't the governor teach you that?
Right.
They're safe at home is what the whole thing is.
Right.
So we should just keep doing that, and then we'll be all right. And we'll get this football team back on the field probably in 2021 with both recruiting class, and we'll really get to see what these guys do together.
Right. Well, then on the offensive side of the ball, again, you got to have targets around Taulia. We as you said earlier, we addressed the offensive line last year with some of the big bodies coming in. This year, we went big in tight end. We get 3 commits at the tight end position. That's huge in 1 year.
That's absolutely huge. A lot of big time. Got Baby Gronk.
Yeah, Baby Gronk, CJ Dupree, 6'5", 245. Now, I don't know if his future spot is written in stone that he's going to be a tight end, because this guy is he's labeled, an athlete, right? This is that one kind of guy that you could see him line up as an H-back. You could see him even put a little bit more size and become a part of the offensive line, or he could lose a little bit of weight and actually stretch out as a potential wide receiver, like a big body wide receiver. This guy can play pretty much anywhere on the field.
Yeah, there's also the tight end from St. Francis. They also had talked about possibly being a fullback at the next level. So there's definitely, they're bringing in big-bodied athletes, multi-talented. Tight ends is one of the most multi-talented positions on the field. You can use them in a lot of ways. So why not stock up? If you can get them, bring them in. They're going to be great on special teams. They're going to be able to play multiple positions on the field. It's a good thing to have a lot of. We talked Baby Gronk. We got to talk Baby Bus, Antoine Littleton. 260-pound running back. Come on.
Yeah, 265-pound running back. I don't know how that equates at the collegiate level, but what I saw on tape, this dude is a freaking beast. He is a freaking beast. Not only is he running people over, but he's running away from players at 6 foot, 265 pounds.
He doesn't even look to run over players. That's the crazy part. Like, I see him lining up. He's looking at a 150, 160-pound corner in high school, and he goes around him. He could have very easily just ended that guy's life, but instead he just leaves him standing there and runs by him. I think this guy is solidly a running back, going to stay a running back, and I can't wait to see him at this level.
I agree. And then not only, it doesn't stop there. They stay at the same school, and a couple of weeks later, they get his teammate, Colby McDonald, to commit as well. Another running back, 5'10", 210. This guy is more of like the prototypical type running back that you would see. Decent pass catcher out of the backfield. I don't know if he's going to be an everyday type starter, but I think he'd be a good role player moving forward for sure. So you get 2 guys in the same backfield out of the same school at St. John's, which St. John's is kind of uncharted territory for the Terps for a very long time. And now we get 4 names in the same draft class out of that school, and they're good talent. That's not anything to shake your head at.
It's good to break in there. I'd like to call it the Thunder and Lightning, but really, looking at tape, they use these guys the exact same way.
I know.
Antoine Littleton's catching passes out of the backfield. Looks like he's got soft hands. Like, they're very multi-talented backs, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see these guys roll.
One of the other storylines that I saw kind of rumors going around, and I think that might hinder the recruiting process, at least in my opinion. You and I talked about it before. The upgrades that are supposed to be done to the stadium over the next year. Actually, I think it's supposed to be ready by this fall, right? They're supposed to be investing, I think it's almost $19 million into a new video and audio production at the stadium, including the massive jumbotron that was going to be at the other end of the stadium, and then upgrading the audio. There have been some rumors and some rumblings that potential project now, due to COVID, could be put on hold. Do you think that has any effect on the recruiting process?
I mean, everything has effect on the recruiting process. I'm hoping these rumors and rumblings are nothing, because there has been no official announcement, and there was certainly an official announcement about it happening. There was a whole Damon Evans live broadcast and showing you what it was and when it would be.
Which is why I think it's so big to recruits, right? Because they made the announcement that they were going to do it because they want everybody pumped and excited about it. Now they're kind of slow-footing it, because if they are putting it on the back burner, they don't want to make that announcement and scare away any recruits.
So the problem is signing day is not till December. So you can't slow foot it past December, because we'll all know, because we'll either be there or there won't be a season. I guess if they cancel the whole season, you just tell the recruits, hey, it's sitting in the warehouse. We don't want to get rained on for a year, and we'll just keep it down here until we're going to play in front of some people.
Right.
So I guess that's what you're slow footing for, is to see if there's a season. But I mean, game one, when I walk in and see that what they call that iPad on a stick out there at the Maryland Stadium, I'll know that they didn't upgrade my system.
I just think that this is when you're talking about high school kids, right? You're talking about 17, 18-year-old kids. I know to us who are a little bit older, like, these are just kind of the finer things in life. Like, we don't really, I mean, from a visual standpoint, I like it. It's kind of cool, but it's not a necessity, right? But for these 17, 18-year-old kids, it's that wow factor. And that's kind of what I worry about with, like, once recruiting opens back up and these people and these kids can start taking visits and they start going to some of these bigger colleges and they see some of their facilities. Because let's face it, right now, the University of Maryland is a bunch of pretty pictures. It's a bunch of pretty drawings. That's all we're seeing is like, oh, we got this state-of-the-art drawing of this facility that we're going to have in like 5 years from now. That's all it is.
Especially in basketball.
Exactly. I mean, it's been like that.
Straight draw.
The drawings get better every year. I'm like, oh my God, this looks phenomenal. When is it going to be reality?
When are they going to take a picture of that stuff? But,
I know.
I've lived, you didn't live quite as much through it as I did with the tunnel. I mean, they told us about this tunnel for 6-7 seasons. We watched construction equipment go over there and start digging this tunnel 3 years before they opened the flipping tunnel.
Do you mean shovels by construction equipment? Because that's about how long it took.
I can't believe they didn't dig it by hand. I really
don't.
That's what
I mean.
But it happened. It did happen. And to look at Cole Fieldhouse, they can see the investment a lot easier now. And when you're just talking scoreboards, it really is just cut the check, and a month later they're going to be there, because it's not a big-time construction project. You're just, it's a mounting bracket. Yeah, obviously it's big steel holding it up, but it's still technically just a mounting bracket.
Right.
The company that's building the display does all the hard work.
Right. That's true.
So I'm not all that worried about it not getting done, but
I'm just talking about, like, I think our time to pounce, especially on getting the local recruits, is now, right? Because we've got a few of them on board, right? And I think people are seeing that. And that's just another added factor that I think might sway somebody from picking University or not picking University of Maryland.
But you are talking 2021 recruits. So there's still time. The plan still is 2021 for this.
Right.
It's not we're scrapping this and we'll see when it happens. The plan, even that's being floated, is 2021. That becomes a lot easier to swallow if there is no season. If we have a season and these guys get to come watch a game and see our crappy scoreboards, the one to the right of us at the end of the horseshoe, the closed end of the horseshoe, that thing has more black spots on it than it has scoreboard anymore.
I know.
So yeah, that might end up hurting us. But if there's no season and they just say, yeah, we're not going to put it up hang an ornament in or what do they call it? Hang a chandelier in a haunted house.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of what it would feel like to put these brand new shiny things up and not let me go look at them.
That's very true. I just I don't know. When we went on our trip to to Minnesota, that was something that stood out to me about the game day experience there. And we are old heads, right? So it's not as important to us.
I was going to correct you on that. That no, this means a lot to the fans in the stands. Probably even more than the players. This particular thing, the training facilities absolutely mean more to the players than they do us. It's cool to us that look at this shiny thing we can bait, but I don't get to go in there. Maybe someday they'll let me as a season ticket holder go tour it like the White House. That'd be sweet. Locks, I'll throw up some cash to go tour it. Just $100 a head to walk through it. I might be able to do that. I don't know. We'll see. Just to put some ideas out there. But yeah, the actual in-stadium upgrades are huge for everybody. I mean, my wife complains every year about the bathrooms in that stadium. That's gonna have to happen eventually too.
Right.
The scoreboards are a good start.
I definitely think it is. From a visual standpoint, it would be a quick fix and a quick upgrade that I think everybody, fans included, can appreciate for sure.
Yep. If anybody can understand sound, it's us.
That's right. Well, it's been fun, man. This is a good episode back. We were raring to go. This was something that's been in the works now for a couple of weeks, but I'm glad we were finally able to do it, put it to actually recorded. So appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms at Shell and Tell Pod. Send us an email if you've got any questions or anything you want us to talk about on the show at shellandtellpod@gmail.com. Visit us on our website at birdlandbs.com/shellandtell. Ryan, sign us off.
Well, with no sports, no toilet paper, and now murder hornets, I don't even know if it's time to say it, but until next time, here's to wishing all is well under the show.